So also, there's a couple of things, and I'm going to draw this out so it makes sense to you. This is my angle theta right here. So across from theta, this is the opposite sign. Now, you may have written this down before. I do want you to write it down again. Because if I can get it in your brain, the more we write it down, the more we see it, the more sense it makes, the more likely we are to remember it come test time. Now, the side across from the 90-degree angle, because the 90-degree angle is the largest angle, right? This one here is the hypotenuse. Ran out of slide there. And then the one left over is just the adjacent. So they said C is the hypotenuse, B is the opposite angle, or opposite of theta. So that's why we call it the opposite side or leg. And then the other leg or side is the adjacent to the theta, right? So this is opposite of theta. This is adjacent. Adjacent really means touching, that word. So what we're saying is this is the side that touches theta. Well, the hypotenuse touches it too, but the hypotenuse is across from the 90-degree angle. So when we talk about chief SOHCAHTOA, really sine of theta is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. Cosine of theta is really equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. That's an H. And then tangent is really the opposite over, bless you, the opposite over the adjacent. So that's where we get SOHCAHTOA from. So remember, if you can't remember what's what, SOHCAHTOA, that's so, ka, T, O, A, T, O, A. So that big story about Chief SOHCAHTOA was kind of an elaborate story, but you'll remember that. Okay, that's how you memorize. Those are the three basic ones. And then the other ones are just reciprocals of that, right? So cosine then, or I'm sorry, cosecant of theta, it's just the reciprocal of sine. So it would be the hypotenuse over the opposite. And then I'll write this over here because I'm running out of room. Secant of theta is the reciprocal of cosine. So that would be the hypotenuse over the adjacent. And then cotangent of theta is just going to be the adjacent over the opposite. Okay? And that's it. Those are the 6 basic trig functions. Now, they're ratios. At some point, we're going to assign some numbers to this stuff, and that's what we're really measuring. And there's a relationship between the ratio of the sides and the angle theta. So as we change the angle, it's going to change the ratio of the sides in order for it to form that right angle. Okay? Any questions on that? And so, did everybody have that written down, or did I go too fast? Do I need to go back? Okay. So remember, so this is more of the same. You can also think of this like 1 over sine. Now, this is helpful because most calculators only have sine, cosine, and tangent. But I'm going to make you do some math where we have to do cosecant, secant, and cotangent. How do you enter it into the calculator? 1 over sine, 1 over cosine, 1 over tangent. That's how we get the math. That's one way. Now, some of the fancier calculators, you can get in there and do some things. But for the most part, that's where this is the most helpful. Okay? And we will cover trigonometric identities at some point. And so this is very critical. But remember what I said, everything is some sort of composition of sine or cosine. Really, technically, everything is some sort of composition of sine. Because you'll learn that cosine is a cofunction of sine. Okay? So I'll give you a second. But we call these the reciprocal identities. Now, in trigonometry, we use identities. Identities are just saying this one thing equals another thing. In other words, the identity is that cosecant of theta is equal to 1 over sine of theta. Okay. Can I move on to the next slide? Just a second? Okay, that's fine. So these reciprocals are very helpful, especially when you go to do your homework. Okay. Okay. So now what does this mean? Well, again, I had you write this down once. I'd like for you to write it down again because my goal is that when you go to take the test, even though I'm going to let you use your notes, you won't even